I think, trigger could come from overseas, but I think more likely the trigger will be Fed tightening. And as I said before, it's not so easy to say, okay, we have to tighten and we'll do a little bit of tightening, but we won't break the system. The problem is inflation doesn't calm down easily. So they're going to tighten and there's leads and lags to that. So that tightening may go on longer than they would like or than the economy can stand. And because we have fragility in the system due to the pandemic, I don't think it's going to take much to tip things over. So I think it's basically the trigger is likely to be Fed tightening, meaning not just raising interest rates, but pulling a good amount of money out of the system. And I just think that we've seen it every cycle that I've been doing this, is that's usually what tips the economy. The Fed overstays the tightening because they have, it's not like tightening and the response happen at once. The response comes many months later, and they always tend to overdo it because they think they haven't done enough yet. So as careful as they are, as much as people want to believe in yield curve control and MMT, I think they're going to find out that once inflation kind of gets out of the bag, it's hard to put it back in. So I think the Fed's going to have their hands full. And I would say probably second quarter of next year is probably the time when you're going to see some of the issues really crop up. I see inflation accelerating. I don't call this hyperinflation because I lived through the hyperinflation in the early 80s. Hyperinflation will be what we see second half of this decade. But I think we are going to see inflation accelerate from here. I'm calling for. I look at commodity prices for one thing. And my read is that copper right now is about $4.20. I expect copper to go up to $6 in the next 6 months. I think lumber's probably heading back to $1,000. It came off of what was it, 1,700 last year, and it fell to below 500, I think, and now it's starting to turn up again. I wouldn't be surprised to see lumber above $1,000 in the next 6 months. So those are just two indicators that I look at. And lots of other commodities, cotton, lots of commodities show when you look at their charts and you look at the action, it tends to project for higher prices. So I think we are going to see higher inflation. I don't know what that will translate into in terms of PPI, CPI, but I think it's certainly going to be up 1% or more. The big reason why I think we're going to have this bust, which again is the worst downturn in the post-World War II era, worst downturn since the Great Depression. The reason for my forecast is the leverage in the system. We are in uncharted territory in terms of how much leverage is in the system. I quoted the numbers before: 300 trillion in debt and quadrillions in notional value of derivatives. The most leveraged economy in the world is China. They went crazy this last cycle from the bottom in 2008 to where we are now. They just leveraged, everybody leveraged up big time. They did it on steroids. So simply put, and we saw a little bit with Evergrande, simply put, their property market is very, is up on stilts and very leveraged. Their whole economy is very leveraged, their whole financial system. So even though they're a more closed economy than we are here in the States, they're going to find at some point that, they can't control it all. It's not that easy. And so I think the odds are that they are going to play a big role in the bust. The conversation you're alluding to was somebody was getting into an argument with me because I said they probably won't be the trigger, but they will certainly play a big role. And he said, those are one and the same. I said, no, they may not trigger the bust. They may not be the catalyst for the bust. But once the bust gets started, their leverage is going to play a big role, as is the leverage everywhere in the world. So China just being the most leveraged is likely to be a significant part of the bust. That's all. It'll be, you'll see it in real estate. You'll probably see it in consumer. I would think you'll see it in their financial system. I have drawn the analogy. It's a hard question to answer because a lot depends on how badly that unleveraging hurts them in the bust. But my gut is, if I were giving you my best guess today, I think we are, and I don't know if this analogy will make sense to you, but we are where Japan was in the late 80s. Coming out of the 1987 crash, they went up to even higher highs in their market, and they peaked in 1989, and their stock market's far below that peak today, 30 years later. And so we are Japan, and I think China is where we were in 1989, late 80s, which means we went, obviously, our markets went way beyond those highs then. And, and the U.S. has been a very strong leader in the last 30 years.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
I have bad news for you. If you're not rich by now, you're screwed. And if you're in debt, you're even double screwed. How so, you might wonder? Well, the sad truth is that you're working your whole life to make someone else rich. The mega corporations, the banks, the politicians, everyone is getting richer. They get your money. And what is even worse, they get your time, they get your life. You are not even in a rat race. You're in a financial prison. But what could a solution for you look like? Honestly, I don't know, but I know what a solution for me would look like. It's very simple. I use whatever money I have and I multiply it with 1,000. This could make my life much easier and probably yours as well. If you have $1,000 available and multiply this with 1,000, I believe that this could solve some financial issue for the one or the other. Of course, if you're ugly, you would have to multiply it with much more than 1,000. My name is Marco Stan, and this is what I decided to do. I decided to 1000x my money. This is not a joke. I know what you may be thinking. What is this guy talking about? How should this work? This is not possible. Well, I made a detailed video where I laid out my plan. And some clever folks might even want to look at this plan and copy it and do exactly what I do. This is just a little hint on the side. You have two options. You leave, you forget what you have seen. You do whatever you're doing and you hope that somehow you get some other results. Good luck with that. Or you click the link below the video. You enter your email address because I'm not showing this to everybody. You at least watch my video on how I plan to 1000x my money. The choice is yours. Make the right choice. Join me. See what a different future you could have. See at least how I plan to do the 1000x. So click on the link below, enter your email address, and I see you on the other side. Your Marco Stan.